What is up, Ninja Nation? Welcome back to the Pitching Ninja Show podcast. Of course, I am Pitching Ninja, and this week, my guests are Kevin Gausman of the Toronto Blue Jays. That's new. Logan Webb of the San Francisco Giants, formerly teammates with Kevin, and Michael Fisher from Codify Baseball, who works with both of these guys on developing heat maps to attack hitters. Gausman and Webb share some really cool stories and also share their grips. You get to learn Kevin Gausman's very, very unique splitter grip, which is one of the filthiest pitches in baseball, and Logan Webb's slider and sinker grip, which helped make him the postseason hero he was last year. But before we get into all this, make sure to subscribe because you're never going to want to miss a Pitching Ninja Show podcast. And without further ado, here are Kevin Gausman, Logan Webb, and Michael Fisher from Codify. Well, let's start off. Kevin, you're like in a new city now and stuff. Are you excited to be a new a Blue Jay?
Yeah, I was in the American League East for 5.5 years. So, I really know the cities, all the ballparks. So I'm definitely looking forward to, going back to some of my spots in Baltimore. And, the pizza at the Vinoy Hotel is the best that I've found in the big league. So looking forward to ordering pizza, room service. But yeah, more than that, excited about the city, and it's a really exciting young team that, has a lot of juniors on it, obviously, and the pedigree that comes with those guys, I think, is just really exciting, and I'm excited to be a part of it. And, excited for kind of a new role of being one of the older guys. I've always kind of been one of the younger guys on every team I've really been on. So, I don't really know what that entails, but I'm definitely excited for it.
And Webb, no hard feelings, huh, Logan?
I was sad. He'll tell you. I texted him like every day, like, "Hey, what'd you hear? Have you coming back?" Probably every single day for, I don't know, a couple weeks, but he kind of let me know early on it probably wasn't gonna happen. So I kind of braced myself for it, but I was still, hoping he'd come back. I'm gonna miss him, but I'm excited to see him, dominate and be a mentor for those guys as he was for me.
Yeah, you got a bunch of good young pitchers there too. That's going to be fun. Manoah is my man. So
yeah, I haven't talked to him on the phone, but just over text and stuff. And he was one of the first guys that somehow got my number and reached out to me. And I'm excited about watching him work. He's a big young kid who has a big arm and can really make the ball move a lot, which is, very similar to his same arsenal as Webby. And so, it kind of seems like he's kind of already got it figured out and had a great year last year. But, whatever I can do to help those guys, I'm definitely going to try to. And just be there for them, and I think more than anything, be there for them when they have bad days, because it's easy to be a fan of them when they're doing great, but to be there for all their bullpens and just watch them work and, have little tidbits for them every now and then to kind of help them get through a full year.
You make a really good point, because I think a lot of fans out there, especially since they play this whole fantasy baseball stuff, or they look at numbers, and we'll get into numbers obviously somewhat, but they don't understand the mental aspect of the game, and that it's not plug and play. There are some days where, it's a grind, but you don't have your stuff. You need somebody to pick you up. You need to be able to play as a team. And I thought last year's Giants team did a really good job of picking everybody up, at least from the outside looking in. It looked like a great playing personality as a team. But go into that a little bit. Like, what does it take as a player, beyond the numbers, beyond your stuff? What is it like as far as mentally? How do you prepare for a game, and how do you deal with that on the bump?
Go ahead, Webby.
I think like it was pretty special, like the dynamic we had last year. Kev just said it about watching their bullpens and kind of being there for the bad days too. And mean, it's a long season. I've never been a part of a full season like that. And, there are days where you don't feel good, or, you're just kind of down a little bit. And, the group that we had, we watched every bullpen. We talked to each other in the clubhouse, in the dugout, just about pitching, about everything. And I think when you have that, it just makes it easier. It makes you more confident, makes you want to be there for everybody. And really, you're so invested in what they're doing, because you watch every bullpen, you see everything that they're doing. And when it happens and it's good, it's almost as fun as you doing well. And it was a special year for all of us. And it was, like I said, I hope, we got, besides Kevin not being there, but we still got a bunch of guys that I think we're just going to kind of carry that on. And I think that's important, is being for each other, being there for each other. And just telling, honestly, it's funny. We just tell each other how nasty we are in bullpens, and and it's something that you need. And it might sound a little funny, but it's pretty cool.
Sounds like my tweets a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think Webby said it perfectly. You keep it loose with each other, but I've been on teams where, when I first got called up in Baltimore, it was we didn't really have that number one guy yet. It was Tillman was just kind of just becoming the ace, and the rest of the guys were kind of all just trying to kind of figure out where we're at in our career. And sometimes as a young player, I think just some guys in the game don't necessarily have the same viewpoints as you, and to have, four other guys in that dugout that want you to do as well as you possibly can, and are there every step of the way, every bullpen, every single day talking about pitching. I think, like you said, it just makes things easier to come to work every day, whereas, like I said in the past, I mean, this was the closest I've ever been with everybody on the team, really the last 2 years in San Francisco. And, that's why we played so well and pitched so well, I think is, there was multiple games where, you just want them to do so well that I would be more nervous watching them pitch than I would be if I was out there in a big situation, just because you're almost you're out there with them going through it, and you go through the highs and the lows. And, and like Webby said, we spend so much time together that you don't have that. It makes it tough. And so to have that was really cool. And, I think we can all say that we're probably all going to be friends for life. And, I'm on a different team now, but I'm still going to be watching all their starts and reaching out to them just as much as if I was still there.
I love that. Now, so one of the things that I've noticed from talking to people about Codify heat maps, for example, but even just generally preparation for a game, but I'll use that as an example, is it also can be a mental game enhancer too, because you don't have to second guess your stuff. You're going out there confident that you're in your pitch selection, confident in the way you're attacking hitters. How much does that play into your success on the mound?
I think it's just that, affirmation that, whatever I see when I'm going through my own scouting, to have his maps is almost all right, you're on the right page, and sometimes, me and Webby would talk, sometimes we would run into a hitter that, him or me would look at, and we'd be like, well, I really thought I could do this, but the map says, otherwise. And so it would be all right, well, maybe just try that the first AB. And I mean, if he hits a homer off you, make sure it's a solo. And then obviously that didn't work, so move on to something else. And I mean, listen, Webby's arsenal is completely different than mine. So, he would have again 4 or 5, pitches that were really spot on to what he needed to do. Whereas for me, it kind of was simple. It was all right, throw fastballs up and throw splits down. And, it was nice to look at, there's usually 1 or 2 guys in the lineup that would be all right, I really need to make make sure that I'm a little bit more fine with my split on this certain guy. But, the rest of it was just, like I said, that reassurance that, what I think I should do is what he thinks I should do too.
Pretty much the same thing, Logan. Is that
Yeah. I think like another thing that helps too is you see a certain guy in the lineup, and like some guys just don't seem human, right? And you look at these maps and you see a ton of blue in a certain spot, and you're like, it kind of it makes you think, okay, this guy is human. Like you can throw it to certain areas. You don't have to be so fine with everything, and it just gives you confidence out there. And another thing that helps too is it has to go both ways. It has to have, like, I know Casali and Buster would look at it with us too, and having those guys being able to look at those maps and see like maybe something that they didn't see that they see in the maps that we could both use, and it just gives that little bit of extra, like he said, the little bit of extra confidence and stuff in your pitches, and knowing that your pitch selection is the right one.
Well, I think Kevin's maps would be really easy because I envision the splitter just being like totally blue for everybody, and you just don't have to I think. Is that right, Fish?
Well, he definitely has an abnormal amount of blue. There's a reason he can throw 2 pitches 8 of 9 times and do what he did, for sure. It was easier than Logan's because Logan came to work this year with a different arm angle and different pitch movement. And, so if he's going to look at team intel is going to be kind of guessing how he used to pitch and need to adjust. That's a big deal. I think I remember talking about your changeup a lot in the spring, Logan. And I'm still just a huge fan of that thing. I think we're going to see, I don't want to tip anybody off because you've already seen a lot of changeups, but it's hard to pick a favorite Logan pitch, obviously. But man, I love that changeup. And it's cool to see, with the lower delivery, and what did he get? 5 more inches of drop on a sinker. What does that mean? And the mapping system is looking at the pitch path, and it's looking at the bat path of, Cody Bellinger, and lining all that up so that, like Logan said, he can look at something where he already kind of knew this pitch works here, but get a little detail of like, how far out can I go, and just attack with that confidence that you see other guys talk about too. The confidence for a pitcher is just, it's invaluable. Pitching with confidence. You saw Logan at the end of the year, and it wasn't obviously just maps, it was everything. It was not losing 22 starts in a row or whatever. Confidence is king, and it turns you into a different pitcher. And then the maps just help do that.
Yeah, yep. Like I was blown. There was one changeup fastball sinker combo that like blew my mind as I did an overlay of it. I think you were asked a question in a press conference. I was like, I can't even see the difference between those pitches until they get to the plate, and it's just totally a velo difference. And it makes it obvious to fans why that would be really tough to hit. Did you feel that? Do you feel that when you throw it? Like you're trying to mirror the sinker movement, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know a lot more. They've told me what it was. It's like the seam shifted weight,
yeah,
sort of thing.
Yes.
Honestly, I don't know much. It's just the kind of the way I throw, and it took a lot of like learning how to throw it and like trusting it, because like you said, it was a different kind of arm angle, it was a different kind of way of approaching, like facing a hitter. And I think like it's crazy. You watch so me and Kev play catch, and for me, I have to be across the baseball. So it's the laminar seeing the circle. And so we would do this thing where he would kind of line up sideways, and I would try to throw it at his shoulder. And that was just kind of the like the thing I needed to see to be able to trust that pitch and know the right movement I wanted on it. And then we would do this almost the same thing with, like, we'd throw change ups at 120 feet and trying to get that same sort of thing. And I think it's just throwing it and getting used to it. And like you said, confidence is a big thing. And I know that's something that we preached a lot in spring and even last year, where I think when I trust those in the zone, it's, good things happen. And that was a big thing. And then obviously you add the maps to it and you see that it works in this certain area. And it's like, all right, now I just got to execute it and trust it. And I think that gives you all the confidence in the world.
You mentioned a lot of science terms, like, we're supposed to know that stuff. Does it help at all to know any of that? Or does it just, hey, you're saying, hey, I know kind of what they told me, but this is the way I get to that point. And it's by having Kevin stand sideways so I can throw the pitch at the right spin axis or have my mindset the right way. How much of it do you delve into, and how much of it do you just say, you know what, just tell me what I need to do, and I just want to throw it this way, and I can do it, but you have to help me figure it out?
I definitely look at like because every bullpen we have the TrackMan, we have the Edgertronic, we have all that stuff, and being able to look at that, you feel when something's not right and when something feels good, and I think with those things it helps you. Just like, I feel wrong on one of them, I can look at that and say, okay, my release height was a little bit down, or there's just a bunch of different things. I love using that, but and Kevin helped me with this a lot. Like, catch play is the most important, I think, and feeling what you're supposed to feel on a mound when you're doing it, and having, I don't think before this year I took it as serious as I should have, and I think when you add both of those, it's like the perfect combination, honestly. And then once you get those down, you get into the game, you don't even worry about those things, and you just compete. And but yeah, I don't know if I really answered your question, but it's like, so both of those things together, I think it's a mixture of both.
He gestured a 2 o'clock axis for his sinker, which is kind of what he averages, but the ball is spinning like it has a 3 o'clock axis by the time it gets out of his hand. That seam shifted wake for him is massive, and it's a sinker. It's an actual sinker, not a two-seamy kind of thing. Plenty of guys were kind of trying to get away from sinkers in the last couple of years, and not with Logan.
It seems to be coming back, though, and I think it's a matter of pairing the pitch with the right other pitch, to me.
Partially, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think one thing that Webby left out was, the fact that he had to not care about my thumb playing catch. He had to just I don't know how many times we would play catch and I would drop my glove and literally I just broke my thumb. I think I just broke my thumb.
That's the
worst.
But,
for me, I had really never even had a catch partner that really threw sinkers. And so that was one thing in spring training, that we would focus on. Like you said, I would stand sideways and make him kind of find that release point, and kind of find throwing to angles, and I think if you're a sinker guy, if you can throw a glove side sinker down and away to a righty that kind of goes around the plate almost, you can throw an arm side sinker. You can essentially throw any other pitch off of that, because that's such a hard pitch. That's such an advanced pitch. So if you can do that, you can throw a changeup middle down in the zone, and your breaking ball is going to play really well off of that sinker down and away. It just made everything else kind of take off. And like you said, I think the biggest thing that he did growth wise this year, like you said, was playing catch. He used to play catch and it was just getting loose, and we kind of made it into, and I had my thing. I was I told him, I think the first week of the season, I don't want to throw a fastball below your waist. I want to throw them above your letters on your jersey every time. And if I don't, I'm going to be mad, because I'm trying to pitch up in the zone. And then when we found his little cue of I'm going to stand sideways and put my glove right here, and he had to find out, he has to start it 1.5 feet behind me essentially for it to end up here. And once he found that, it just, all of his other stuff really just kind of took off.
Logan, did you feel bad doing that to Gavin Lux when he jumped out of the way of that sinker?
No, not really. Do I feel bad? No, because I wanted to get him out. No, it's definitely it's cool to see as like just a progression. And, Kevin was a big part of that. And I wouldn't have been able to throw that pitch unless I, worked all year trying to get to be able to do that.
It is such a nasty pitch when that works. You did it a couple times. I think you had Marte jumping out of the box on one that was outer third or something like that. It was insane. And so that's an interesting cue. And I think more people should practice it, that if you're going to be a sinker dude or two seam dude, that's a great way to work on it in catch play. Now I got to imagine that splitter kills people's hands and thumbs and stuff. Like that would not be fun to catch. What is it? What's it like catching that? I'm curious, because no, you can't hit it, but like, what's it like catching it?
Should I tell him, Kev?
You can tell him.
He doesn't throw splitters and catch play. He just throws changeups.
He's just like, yeah, screw it, I'm going to kill somebody.
He started doing it here, and it's pretty incredible. It literally fastball the whole way and then just drops. Like it seems like 5 feet. It's crazy, especially when you start getting, because like I said, we throw it a little further out, but it's crazy. But it's also because everyone's like, they always ask him like, hey, throw a splitter. He doesn't even throw any splitters in bullpens or during catch play. He just gets on the mound and throws it. It's literally, I think it's the best pitch in baseball, to be honest.
We saw
Game
one today
only.
that
Game
cut.
time only.
Right. We saw one today that cut, right, Kevin?
Yeah. It used to do that a lot more.
3 inches to cut.
Yeah, I used to do it all the time.
Even Casale knew it was coming and kind of lurched at it. He's shaking his head. So I wouldn't want to be catching it.
Yeah, I mean, some games Buster would hate me. For the first 2 innings, like it would do something different every time I threw it. And so, especially towards the end of the year. And so, he would have certain innings where he'd come in and be like, "I'm gonna stop calling it," and I'm like, "Don't stop calling it, because I don't have that many other pitches. So we got to keep throwing it." Like, and usually the more I throw it, the more I kind of find that release point, and by the end of the game, it's usually going to be what it is. But yeah, he for sure sometimes like it just goes straight in the dirt or will end up in the other batter's box. And I mean, it's a tricky pitch. It's a love-hate relationship some days for sure.
It was just one of those pitches that there were times where I was like, that's about as nasty a splitter as anybody has ever thrown in baseball. I mean, I was looking back like at Mike Scott's splitter back in the day, where he kind of might have like scuffed the ball a little bit, but it was still nasty. It doesn't matter. But yeah, that stuff was, and it's a very different splitter than someone like Ohtani throws, for example. The movement is much different, I would think. So that's, when did you decide, like, so the thing that I always had a hard time with, like, I'm trying to just visually determine what pitch type it is, and your changeup versus your splitter, what made you ditch the changeup or throw it less? Was there intended to be a distinct difference between those pitches that maybe disappeared over time? What was the story with that?
Yeah, so I mean, really, when I first came up, I got called up in 13, and I mean, my first 5 starts, I think I was 0-3 with like a 7.8 ERA, just getting hit all around the park, and it was tough. But the only changeup or split that I threw was my split, and it was essentially either like kind of a bad split that ended up being a strike, or I was cutting it, or it was nasty, but I didn't throw enough good ones that they would just lay off of it. And so pretty quickly into my career, Dave Wallace, my second year pitching coach, was like, we need something that looks like a fastball that you can throw for a strike whenever you want. And I had never really been able to throw a circle change, and just over time throwing it, it kind of took off when I started throwing long toss with it. And that's one thing, like Webby was talking about, I really like to throw it, from 150 plus, like if I can, because I'm trying to throw it like a fastball, and I want it to look like a fastball the whole way, but just have, a 10-mile-an-hour difference. And so really when I started doing that, I felt like, my command with it And, really this year, I really threw a lot of them. I just threw them early in the count, and so I'd throw them early in the count, get ahead. And to be honest, it may sound bad to say, but I don't think hitters are smart enough to give you credit of throwing a changeup and a split, especially if they, look at the thing and they're like, oh, all right, before the game, he throws a split 40% of the time. If you throw a changeup early in the count for a strike, they come back in the dugout after they got out and they're like, he's throwing it for strikes, like go try to get it. And then that's when they start swinging at, splits that are essentially a ball out of my hand because they think it's going to be a strike. And so that's really kind of when I think that had a lot to do with my success this year, was being able to show that change up for a strike and then, back it up with a split again. And then the next pitch, fastball up and in, and it just kind of all played off each other really well.
That makes sense. One of the things that I noticed when you pitch, you look like you have an inside joke in your head or something. It's that chewing gum smile, half smile thing that you have going on. Is that an intentional thing, or is that just the way is that the way you feel out there? Like you have this mannerism about you, like a confidence, and Logan has a different degree of confidence, but it's more of I can't read his face sometimes, but I can just tell he's feeling it. Where you just have the confident gum chewing thing going on.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not on like purpose, but honestly, sometimes this year, like I threw some splits that, I would kind of start laughing and be like, they had no shot on that, and it was just, there was multiple times where I threw it. And, one of the best things about being a pitcher is when you make, a professional hitter look stupid. There's no better feeling than that, and having your, 5 seconds of strolling around the mound, thinking about how nasty the pitch you just threw is, and especially if you're punching out a lot of guys that day. And some days I just felt like I didn't even need to throw fastballs. I could just throw all splits. And I think one game I ended up throwing like 60 some splits this year. And so, that's just crazy, but when it's on, it's on. And like Buster would say all the time, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, and I know Webby is kind of the same way. Sometimes he would throw a slider that was in the other batter's box and the guy swings at it. And it's just like, you got to laugh, and because, if they're going to like show us up, when they smoke a ball right back up the middle or hit a home run, like, why can't we kind of chuckle in our head when we punch them out? And so it's that chess game that's always going on.
I 100% agree with you on that. Me just watching it and knowing that I'm going to like put it up on Twitter or something like that, like, oh my God, check this out. Is I can't imagine what it's like to actually throw that pitch where you did that to somebody. And that's why I was getting at with Webby earlier with the one to Lux. I was like, he just jumped out of the batter's box on that one. What are your tells on when you're feeling confident, Logan? Like, what are you? Is it that game face, or do you are you internally like ever saying, "Oh my God, that was nasty"?
I feel like I'm consistently like mad at myself during the game. I don't know why. I just like, but it helps me. And when I get off the mound, we go in and and I'll sit there with Andrew Bailey, our pitching coach, and we'll watch the inning before on the iPad. And like that's when I'll be like, that was pretty nasty right there. But honestly, when out on the mound, I think that like that little bit of anger and like helps me. And a lot of guys are different, but that's kind of what gets me in the zone, is kind of being pissed off. And it's funny though, because like before the game and even when I'm warming up and like in the bullpen before, like I'm always joking around. And then but I need the joking around at that part of the day, so that I can like put all my anger and kind of like aggression towards pitching. And that's when I use that.
So you're not one of those guys are you one of those guys who no one can talk to before the game, or you're joking up until you step out there?
I'm usually joking around most of the time. I've tried to do the, not talk to me thing, and I just takes a lot out of me, honestly.
It's just so funny to see, because I've played with certain guys, like you said, that like you better not talk to them on their start day, and talking to Alex Wood, like that's the way Kershaw is. Like you better not talk to him. I know Will Harris, he says the same thing about Verlander. He's like, you better not even look his direction on his start day. And that's awesome. But like, I'm not that guy either. Like, I get more serious the closer the game gets, but it's like, that would be exhausting if I did that, like I already feel like some days after my starts, like my head hurts because I'm so like focused. If I was doing that all day, like, man, that would be draining, and, in the past, I used to try to be a dick. Like I would try to be a dick my entire start day. Like in the past, I would be like, and my wife knew it. She was like, all right, start day, like you're going to be a dick to me all day. I know it. I'm expecting it. And I guess that shit didn't work, and so, so now I kind of know, and I've fine tuned my routine over the years, but yeah, Webby is just such a character. And, one of the best things watching him this year was, even last year and, looking back on video before then, like he would be mad at himself, but he would let it affect him like the rest of the game or the rest of the inning. Like if he walked a guy, like he got 0-2 on a guy and he ends up walking him, like he's thinking about that like 2 hitters later, and maybe like those 2 guys got hits or something, and you could kind of see it like it affected him. And this year, like, you could just tell that he had like kind of turned a page when it came to that. And so that was really cool to see because, it was almost like, I think we all have known that guy that the other dugout is like, let's just get him rattled and then he's going to fall apart, like, I don't know how many times I've sat in dugouts and guys have said that, yeah, this guy's really good, but if we get, string a couple hits together or he walks a couple guys, like, he's not going to be the same. And I feel, I don't know about if I can say this, Webby, but I feel like that was kind of you in the past. And, you kind of learned and graduated from that and kind of learned to like, even if I walk this guy, like, and especially with him, he's always a ground ball away from a double play. Like one pitch away from getting a ground ball and them turning 2. And so it was really cool to see him do that this year.
How did you make that adjustment? Like, what was it? Did you realize you were doing it? I know DeGrom said he did the same thing. Like there was an outing. He remembered it. He gave up like 8 runs early or something like that, just spiraled. And he kept thinking back to mistakes he made and pitching mad, and it didn't work for him. So he had to like think about the next pitch rather than think about previous pitches. Was that a conscious adjustment? Is it just a matter of learning from being in the big leagues and knowing what works and what doesn't work? Or did somebody tell you maybe, hey, chill a little bit?
I think it was a mixture of all those things. I had Cap would always tell me about that. Gauze would always talk about that. Everyone was like, dude, it's not a big deal. Relax a little bit. And but I also think it's, just pitching more in the big leagues, kind of getting confidence that, like Kevin said, when, say you do walk a guy or give up a base hit, like it's a single, like you're still 1 pitch away from a double play or, and just getting the confidence and knowing that, like, I think it's huge. And I thought before, like, you can't walk anybody. That was always like, it's always kind of been my pet peeve. And when I did, those were always the innings that, I'd look back and it's like, I end up throwing 30 pitches, getting taken out of the game, or I give up 3 runs instead of, it could have been, 1 run or something like. I think it's just trusting myself and trusting, what the catcher's doing and trusting my defense. Because, in San Francisco, you got Longoria, Belt, Crawford, Listel. It's a great, especially because I get a lot of ground balls too, and it's just trusting it and like, and knowing I'm 1 pitch away from getting out of this inning or, staying away from damage. And it took a while. It took a lot of like getting mad and now I feel like I can use that. Like, I get mad. I can also, I walk a guy, I can be mad about it, but it's like, and then being like, okay, I'm pissed off. Let's get this guy in one pitch. Let's break his bat. Let's do something to get out of this inning real quick. And I think that was kind of the progression I needed to make. And, I still got a lot of progressing to do, but that was a big part of it, and having the confidence in doing that.
How much more confidence can you have going into a season after the way last season ended? Like, you were objectively unbeatable. Like watching you pitch, you were on another level. You were like Mad Bum quality type thing, where I knew when you went out there, you were just going to shut people down. And people, they were outwardly saying it before the game. It's like, this is going to be tough. We're going to have to scratch to get a run because this guy is the man. Like, what does that do for your confidence going into a season? And did you feel that click? Did you have that confidence that it just seemed like?
Well, so when the 2 outings I had before I got hurt, I pitched in Cincinnati, and I didn't feel great that game, and I pitched well, and then I went on the DL and came back and pitched against the Dodgers, and I pitched well again, and then my shoulder wasn't it just wasn't right. So then I did my rehab, and I ended up having to do my rehab outings in the big leagues in July. And honestly, I felt like that just made me not think about things. It kind of went back into it. And I think that just I started pitching better, and I was like, holy cow, like I think I'm kind of good at doing this, and just that confidence. And honestly, it was it's funny. It's like a blur last year. It was such a fun year, and going into this year, it's cool because I know what I want to do with my pitches and how I pitch. I know how I'm supposed to pitch, and I think that's the big thing. Is I've never really gone into a year knowing what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, and I feel like last year showed me the guy I'm supposed to be and the way I'm supposed to pitch, and just kind of fine tuning that in the off season instead of trying to, redo my entire, arm path or the way my lower half moves. And like, I know exactly what I need to do now. Now it's just, fine tuning and just kind of hopefully getting just better at what I was doing.
How much of a difference does it make throwing to a Hall of Famer catcher dude, like one of the all-time great catchers? Like, what difference does that make? How does that change what you do, your approach? What was the biggest impact that has on both of y'all?
He just gives like a quiet confidence out there. I don't know what it is. I can't really explain it. It's just, you see him back there and it's like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. Like, he's caught multiple, I think, Hall of Fame pitchers. He's caught in the World Series. And, for me, especially, like Kevin was saying before, like I'd get in my own way. So like, he'd be out there just kind of like put his head to the side or like kind of go like this. And it's like, all right, like calm down, you'll be okay. And he just gives that. I don't know what it was. And, Kurt's the same way. Casale, he's unreal. Just having those two was amazing. And, I'm definitely going to miss the guy. He's just a great person, on and off the field. And, but I don't know what it was. Like, he does this thing. I know most catchers do, but he just does it differently. Like, so he'll be sitting there and he'll just be kind of like looking at the hitter, like almost like super calm, and you're sitting on the mound like, okay, just give me a pitch. Come on. I'm ready. And he just like look and you just put a finger down and go to the spot. And it's like, all right, like, let's go. And I think that's badass. And the way he did it was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely second that. He's like, I've had a ton of catchers over the years that, they look at the guy, they're thinking about it, and then they look down, they're still thinking about it, and then they call the pitch. Well, he's like looking at the guy as he's calling the pitch. And you can see that, like, when he sets up, he knows, like, it's almost like in his head, like, if we execute this pitch, this guy has no shot, And like, I'm sure it's even more fun for Webby because he has so many different pitches, to where like he would put down a sign and maybe Webby, like, that's the last pitch he was thinking about throwing, but it's Buster Posey putting his fingers down. So, like, all right, ultimate confidence, like this, he sees something, like whether he's looking at, maybe the guy moved in the box or, whether he moved up or, like for me, I would see a lot of guys that would try to move up in the box to try to kind of like get to my split, before it broke. And so, he would see that right away and be like, all right, fastball up and in, like if we throw this fastball up and in, this guy has no shot because he just moved 6 inches up in the box. He thinks you're going to throw another split because you just made him look stupid on the last pitch. Whereas like maybe in the past, or even if it's a different catcher, you might be like, well, no, I just made this guy look stupid on this pitch. I'm going to throw it again. Whereas like I said, like it's Buster Posey. And so he's been in every situation that you could imagine. And he's caught every type of slider, every type of curveball, every rising fastball, sinking fastball, cutting fastball. Like he's done it all. And, I felt like he really took the time, that he was off to make sure, like when he came back in spring training, I mean, he was, I really had not thrown to him much before that, but I mean, I feel like he got even better behind the dish, and the way that him and Casali, were able to block my split last year. I mean, they saved me a ton of runs just being able to feel, give me the confidence that, even if there's a guy on third with 2 outs, like we're calling this, and I had confidence knowing that they're going to be able to block it. And, it's a tough pitch to block. It's not like a breaking ball, blocking a breaking ball. Like I said, the split kind of does something different a lot of times. And so I thought those guys did a hell of a job last year. And a lot of the success that we had as a staff, I think, had a lot to do with those 2 guys.
I've never asked this question, Fisher, but does it change for you when you're doing maps, the catcher's ability? Like what impact does that have?
Yeah, it's tough because, don't usually know the catcher when I make the maps, and there are definitely differences in how guys work and frame and all that. And so these guys get maps that are kind of catcher agnostic and leave that stuff up to, like when you see a guy move up in a box or maybe there's a guy on a different team. None of these guys that know that one catcher frames really well outside and the other guy kind of drags balls out. They know that, they adjust that on the fly. If we knew the catcher in advance, the maps would look, slightly different in their case. Sometimes very different.
Yeah, I would say like even a drop third strike type thing.
Oh yeah,
like they need to get rid of that rule, right? I'm like, there's no reason to run to a base after you've already embarrassed a hitter. Like it's shameful for the hitter, the pitcher. Like it means more pitches for y'all. Like, come on.
Kevin's in favor of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went off on that several times just because it is a weird rule to have in a game where a guy swung at something that they couldn't possibly, the catcher couldn't even catch. And somehow they get to go to first base. Like, come on, let's just change it and make it's like a consolation prize. It shouldn't happen.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Just making sure about that.
But it does give you the opportunity to like punch out 4 guys in 1 inning.
That is a plus. Yeah, that is definitely a plus. Let's talk about some pitch. I don't know if any of y'all have a baseball handy. All right, who wants to start? Who's the guinea pig?
Go ahead, Webby. You got more to talk about.
Yeah, he's got more. You get to talk about like one pitch and then all right. Let's start with that sinker.
So I just hold it. It's like a normal this way.
So nothing special.
So this is something that this ball, like the mark, we used it this last year a couple times in bullpens, and I throw most of my bullpens when I'm throwing 2 seams with this because I want to see that dot kind of at the top the entire time. And it's the same sort of concept with my changeup. So it's like it's a modified, I split my fingers a decent amount, but it's like a modified split change type thing, but it's almost like the same thing. I want to see that circle at the top.
And that's to make sure the ball's sinking.
Yes.
Due to the seam.
Sure that. So like if I start to get over here, the ball kind of do that. And honestly, the ones that are kind of more towards the top are the ones that kind of sink the most and have that like the seam shifted wake sort of type thing. And I think when I see that, and that's when it has that late kind of bite to it that I want, instead of, so I've always thrown two seams, but I've always kind of like tried to pronate them, and so they'll move, but it won't be late. And I know this is, a lot of guys who have better sinkers still kind of throw it this way, and they see that circle at the top, and it has that almost like the turbo sinker, whatever they call it. And it's kind of the way I got better at it, and just like knowing that's what I want to see every single time I'm throwing. That's why the Edgertronic's so important. And this is just a good visual to have, like, because you can see it right away.
When did you become like your entire life you've been a sinker ball guy? Like when even in youth baseball, or you?
No, I started. I mean, I've always thrown them. My first 2 years in pro ball, I had some elbow issues, so I wasn't throwing hard. It's the first four seam wasn't working too great, so I had to learn to throw something that moved. And we had a guy named Andrew Suarez who showed me the one seam, so I started throwing that. But my arm slot was a lot higher, so it was a lot of like pronating. And then when I came back from Tommy John, I actually was throwing more four seams. Because of the way my arm moves, I would cut all my four seams. And then when Ryan Bannister came in beginning of 2020, he was like, I actually think your arm is better in a lower slot. And he showed me like videos of Chris Sale, and I'm like, I don't throw that. Throw that. Like, and then he was like, just keep working on it, keep throwing two seams, keep trying to work on that and catch play and seeing that. And now it's all I really throw, catch play. I'll throw every once in a while some four seams up, but they're god awful. So I just kind of like that's like surprised me. Like, if a guy probably hasn't seen anything up, like I'm throwing everything down, I'll throw one up, and half the time it's not good. But I gotta show him a couple of times.
So the slider, do you try to kind of mirror the opposite break of it? What's your intent on the slider? How do you grip it? All that.
So it's just like this. So when I moved down, they had me trying to throw more of like a sweeper, like Chris Sale, like his kind of. And when I was doing that, I was trying to like honestly get to the side. It's like a chop. But when I was doing that, I was actually like kind of casting my arm out a little bit, trying to think about it. So it was getting this like pop. It was moving a ton, but it was getting a pop. And then last off season, I actually talked to Bales, and I talked to some other guys. So we had a guy who was here. His name's Nate Irving. He's with the Red. He was telling me about like some of the Reds guys in Bauer throw kind of the back of the hands at the ball. And so I started working on that, and I couldn't throw that. But it kind of helped me get back into, the feeling I wanted to feel. So like it's weird to say this, but like I'm throwing from that slot, but I'm trying to get to the front of the baseball, almost like a 12-6 curveball, but it's like from that angle. And like for me, it was more, I don't need all that sweep. I could lose a little bit, but have it, have this to it instead of out and there. Mm-hmm. And I think when I was thinking sweeper, I was just casting my arm a little bit. So now I try to keep my arm like, even though I'm not throwing from here, that's what I'm thinking. And it helped me a ton.
It's interesting because Sale describes his slider like a curveball. So he basically says the same thing, which is kind of cool. Do you ever think of it like you're trying to create? Do you think of it as tunneling when you do it? Is that even a thought in your head? Like, are you trying to make it go the opposite of your sinker?
I think the biggest thing was and Gal said this earlier, was that backdoor sinker and really honing that in and getting that right feel. As soon as I start throwing that and I start throwing it for strikes, I think the slider just works perfectly off of that. And I think I needed to learn how to throw that backdoor sinker before I could do anything else, before it would really work the way I wanted it to. And now it's like, you know, Buster, I don't know if you guys watched the game. Buster would set up so far outside. He's like, dude, throw it right to me. Like, it's going to be outside, but it's going to be just coming off that sinker perfectly. And like, guys are going to swing still. And I'm like, no, they won't. And they started swinging more. And it was, it's just cool. So I try to like kind of tunnel those two off each other. And then the changeup is the same sort of thing.
That makes sense, because it reminds me of one thing that like Max Scherzer said. You can learn how to throw a pitch. Like you can make the pitch move the way you want it to, but to know how it works with other pitches takes time. Like there are things, he says it takes 3 years for him to add a new pitch to his arsenal and feel comfortable with it, know how to attack people. And people are like, oh my God, how does it take 3 years? But it really kind of does when you're trying, like you can throw a sinker, but knowing how it works, where to aim it, where to start it, what it's going to do to different hitters, back door, front door, all that stuff. It's hard.
Definitely.
All right.
So Webby, why don't you talk to him about why, when you first start playing catch, why you want your sinker to cut? Why don't you talk to him about that?
So when, like, it's weird when you don't throw it with intent, you still want to see that. And like, the more intent you get, that's like, it catches the seam. That's what they always say. Like, if you don't throw it. So if I'm playing catch and we're, I don't know, 60 feet out, and I'm, you know, not obviously throwing as hard as I at the end of catch play, if I'm throwing it the right way, it'll cut. And like, if it's cutting, that means I'm throwing it good, and I'm throwing across the baseball. Like, it's just not, I know if it's sinking at the beginning, that means I'm pronating a little bit early. And so it's realizing that it's kind of weird, but you know, I always tell guys that aren't Kevin, that was my catch partner. I'm like, hey, I'm throwing all sinkers, but it's going to cut at the beginning. They're like, what the heck? Like, why? And I'm like, it's just the way it kind of works. And it's cool to me. I think it's, just having those, like, that's why I think like this ball is so good to have that kind of like visual, and it cutting at the beginning is probably the best visual for me. And it's, you know, I do feel bad for some of my catch partners, but it's kind of where I have to be to be able to move the right way.
Kevin probably deserved it though, didn't he? Like,
it's
No.
nastier than his actual cutter though. That's the thing.
maybe try it. Like throw a half intent sinker and make it a cutter. That'd be kind of nasty.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
So do you want to show your any other pitchers you're working on? Like, what are you gonna, knuckleball? Everybody throws a knuckleball, right? Like, practice.
I don't know how many cutters I end up throwing. Like, I've been throwing some, but that's one of the joking things is I'll throw, if I'm warming up in a game, I'll throw one good cutter, and I'll look back at Andrew Bailey, who had, I think, one of the best cutters, and I'd be like, Bales, coming for you, like, gonna be the best cutter. And like, I'll just joke. No, it's fun. It's just a hard kind of feeling for me to be able to get like kind of that. And I don't want to give too much away, but it's been getting a little better.
Oh, good. I mean, look, I found some people that are really good at pronating are not good at, they're just not good at throwing sliders and cutters and all that. And the real, and some guys are able to do it all. Like, I mean, again, we bring up Scherzer, he can throw a slider and a changeup that he really pronates. But other people just can't. They just can't seem, their wrists work one way better than the other.
Yeah, I would be one of those guys.
I was gonna say, now on to Kevin and his just weird, nasty, sick. It's a weird splitter though. Like, it's not the way a normal person would throw a splitter. Not that you're not a normal person, because I would never say that to your face.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people, like when they first say, that they throw a split, it's either, just like a true split like this, or even like a lot of guys like to throw it across the four seam because they throw four seams. And that's kind of where I'm different. Like it's kind of like Lincecum-esque, same kind of grip almost. Like it's a funky grip. And, a lot of people, when I first show it, they're like, it feels like it's gonna jump out of my hand. Like I'm gonna throw it to the backstop. And to be honest, it took me 3-4 years for it not to feel like that for me. But I think one of the things that, like, for me was a key was having this finger on the other side of this seam. So kind of hard, but like I want to feel all the pressure on this side of my finger. And so that when I throw it, I'm essentially like, it's like catching like this. And so that's how it gets this spin, almost like the gyro spin, but opposite, like a gyro slider, but going the other way. And so the reason why I don't throw it in bullpens is because it just tears the crap out of my finger. Like if you ask anybody who's played with me, I mean, I have a huge blood blister every single game, probably half of a dime size blood blister. And the bigger the blister is early in the game, the better my split is going to be. So if I'm in like the second inning, or especially if I'm in the first inning and I get a blood blister, it's like, all right, like splitter is going to be on today. And so it's just kind of a key because like that's how I get that. Like the last thing that's touching is this side of my middle finger. And that's why, like, consistency wise, it goes this way more than it does this way. And if you watch a lot of guys who throw splits, especially like there's not many starters in the big leagues that throw splits. And I think it's because like it's a pretty frustrating pitch if you're throwing a true split, because especially if you're throwing it and you don't really have a seam, or you're trying to throw it on this seam, the first thing it's going to do is go that way. And so like first thing I always tell guys is like, mess with where your finger is going to be, because, and it's going to feel weird because every pitch you throw, you're used to the seam coming off going this way. A slider, you're going to feel that. Even like a four seam, you're going to feel that essentially. And so unless you're like, like some sinker guys will kind of talk about feeling it on the inside and it rolling that way. And I honestly think that's why Webby's changeup is so good, is because, it essentially is like, if you looked at his grip, like it's like a funky, like it's almost a split, like he's got a funky grip. And
Let's
so
hold that up again, Webby. Yeah, that is pretty very split.
So my last, like Kevin said, the feeling I want to get is it coming off my middle finger. Every single time. It's like that's the last thing I want it to touch.
And so like some days, like when my split's really good, I can hear like if you can hear it on the thing, like you hear that. And like I like some guys, you hear guys when they throw breaking balls, like tight breaking balls, you hear that. But the only pitch that I hear that on sometimes is my split. And that's because like, and another thing is like a big key for me, kind of hard to show.
The thumb position is weird too. Like
It's crazy.
Yeah. So that's another thing. Like I'll move my thumb according to kind of like if I want to throw it for a strike and it like me feel pretty confident in it being a strike, it's going to be more like here. But if I want to throw like a nasty split that I am never trying for it to be a strike, I'm like almost tucking that and pushing it against this middle finger. And so making sure that the last thing that it touches is this side of my finger, like right here. And then that's how you get like, but I think the biggest thing is like nobody really throws a split on the two seam like I do. Like everybody I've really ever talked to, they throw splits across the four seam or like this, And so, and it's funny, like shout out to my JV pitching coach in high school. who taught me this, because if he wouldn't have taught me this, I don't know where I'd be, you know? And so he taught me that grip. And, you know, when he first taught me it was like thumb under completely and like that. And then just over time, it morphed into, all right, like I can really cut the speed if I move my finger down. And then, all right, if I put pressure against this finger, like I can throw it even harder and it's going to move a crazy amount. And so, you know, over the years, but it's definitely a pitch that, you know, it took 3, 4, 5 years to really, you know, I've been throwing it since high school, but really until like college. You know, my last year at LSU, it was like, all right, I feel pretty confident in this, you know. And then it's like any pitch. I mean, the more you throw it, the better you're going to feel with it. So as my percentages of throwing it have gone up, it's just gotten better and better.
Did you think he was crazy when he first showed you that? Because that is the oddest split grip, and it's kind of weird. I mean, it's awesome that a JV coach, or would you say JV coach, was it? Or
yeah,
was able to like influence your career like that. Like you own part of your salary.
Yeah, I really do. And you know, another thing too is like a lot of guys throw splits with just like a true split, but like for me, like having these fingers on the side, I think it just makes sure that this is what it's going to come off of. Whereas I think if this is down here, you know, it almost has like more tendency to go and touch your pointer finger. And so having these up here, it's almost like more weight over here to just make it. And then that's what's pulling down on that ball.
And that's probably why it's so hard to like, even if you zoom in on your hand when you get your grip, I can't distinguish that from your changeup just by grip. What is the difference between your changeup and your split grip?
I mean, if you're looking at like numbers wise, I throw my split a little harder. You know, my split is anywhere like.
What are you doing to make that happen?
Oh, okay. So I just throw a straight circle change. I mean, it's pretty simple. Like I said, like I want to be able to throw this like a fastball and it look like a four seam and just be 10 miles an hour slower. You know, and I feel pretty confident in like being able to throw this. And I really just try to throw it with these two fingers, you know, and then just kind of let this like be there for the ride.
So you're not pronating that particularly. You're just trying to keep those fingers behind it and throw it like a four seam.
I never try to think pronate on anything. Unless I'm like this year, I mean, sometimes I would mess with you know, the Scherzer or the Strasburg changeup, you know, the two seam. And I would throw it in bullpens, just having fun with it. And, you know, even I think Scherzer throws this too. And he talks about, you know, kind of doing that. Yep. But even still like this, I just try to like throw the crap out of it. And, you know, like you said, like some guys are really good at pronating. Some guys are really good at the other way. Like I can make my hand go this way really easily for whatever reason. But that's why I struggle throwing a breaking ball, is because it's harder for me to do that, you know. And like you said, there's only a couple guys who can really do both, you know, really well. And it took me a long time to figure that out. I mean, I had years and years of, you know, all right, is it a curveball? Maybe I can throw a curveball. Nope, can't throw a curveball. Like, you know, and now I have I mean, I would say my slider is a lot better than it used to be. You know, it's just a
little spike, you
know, a simple kind of like spike a little bit. And I just try to kind of pull down on that middle finger. It's a little gyro slider that, you know, I'm not going to throw very often. I throw it early in the count. And, you know, the better my fastball is, the more leeway I have on this. And so, you know, and then I just throw a four seam, you know, a straight four seam. And sometimes I try to tuck this a little bit so that both the fingers are rolling off, you know, the same point. And really I really only try to do that when I feel like it's like So my ball goes like that. Like it kind of rides two seam, I guess, but it's a four seam. But if it's going side to side, that's when I'll turn that a little bit just to feel like I'm staying behind the ball.
Did both you guys grow up as hard throwers, or did that come later?
I've always thrown pretty hard. I mean, not hard like Kevin and some of the guys that throw 100 now. I feel like everyone throws 100 now, but 92, 94, hit 95 every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a good arm. That was like, I always wanted to be an outfielder. And so my dad would always hit me fly balls, as far away as he could hit them. And I would just wear myself out trying to throw them back in on a line. And I was the worst player on my team growing up for a long time. Like my dad was the coach, and I still barely played. And but I always had a good arm. I could always throw hard. And I was like the essential like definition of a kid that was pitching and threw hard but had no clue where the ball was going for a long time. And so now I have a pretty good idea of what I'm trying to do out there. But it was I was a thrower for a long time.
Well, Logan's one of the best hitters of all time. I'll let you brag a little bit.
He hit for the cycle last year.
Loved that you said that. He loved that you said that.
I know, like I saw Fisher tweet about him hitting for the cycle, and I don't know. Do you ever think about maybe making the switch?
No, I can't hit.
I'm kidding.
I go up there and just swing, and if it's near the zone, sometimes I hit it, sometimes I don't. It's just kind of if I miss the first one, I'm screwed.
I'm just glad he didn't get hurt, because this guy takes hacks. Like, he takes the biggest swings when he's out there. If you throw him a breaking ball, he has no shot. But do not throw him fastball. I told him now we don't know. We'll probably never hit again. But I always told him if I ever faced him, I'm throwing him all splits. Like, no fastballs, all splits. Good luck. Here you go. Try to hit it.
Does it bug you never hitting again? Like, is that one of those things, like, does it help you ever prepare for a game by knowing what a pitcher, like knowing how nasty another pitcher is, going, wow, it really is hard to hit, and maybe give you more confidence? Or you'd rather just not focus on hitting ever again?
I think it was
fun when you, yeah, go ahead.
It's for, I don't know how, it's fun for us because I think like in between our starts, and like, so every game, if we're not pitching, we go down and we like, they wanted us bunting, and like, so we'd play games out of it, like bunting, and then we'd slap, like we'd hit, and it was, I think that made it like more fun. That was more fun to me than, like, obviously I love going up there and hitting, but half the time or 75% of the time I strike out, or but like going, like for all the starters, we had this like little games that we'd play, and I think that was fun, and it makes you feel like you're still a kid again, kind of like doing those little things that you used to do, and being able to like mess around and talk to the hitters about how they hit. I'm gonna miss it. I'm not gonna miss striking out, but I'm gonna miss like, those in between the starts, like having fun with the guys and doing that.
Webby would live for the 25 swings that he's taken on the field that day. Like, he lives for that, because he's going to try to hit every single one of them out. He's going to get his bunts down, like maybe some slashes, but then the rest, he's just going to try to hit bombs. And like, he does a lot. I mean, his power is like pretty impressive. But yeah, I mean, what he's saying,
his guns here.
Oh, for sure. I mean, He takes G hacks, but the cool thing was, like, we would play games and we'd go in there and talk with like the hitting coaches, and we had these foam balls that we would set up, and I mean, we would set it up to like whoever we're going to face. So like, all right, we're facing like, Urias is facing us, so they big rising fastballs and lefty curveballs, and like, we're trying to bunt those, and some of those like machines are so nasty that by the time you get in the game, like, not that it's easy, but like, you've been seeing some nasty like breaking balls that are really like unrealistic coming out of this machine, that like it made it a lot like not easier, but more reasonable, I guess. And like we would make games of it, and like, all right, like, 1-2 count, guy on second, like, like seventh inning, whatever, try to knock him in. And then it's crazy because we would do that. And then like I ended up hitting a walk-off sac fly, and like we would practice those things.
You got to just work that in there. Like, I hit a walk-off sac fly. Yeah, I like that. I remember
but
that.
I mean, like, if you don't practice those things, like, honestly, I probably would have been a lot nervous, but like in my head, I'm like, I've done this every day, the whole season. Like, and it just made it, like you said, it made it a lot more fun. And I think one thing that kind of sucks about it is I think when you're in the National League, I think it keeps you more athletic because like you are hitting, you're swinging, you're bunting, whereas like when I was in the American League, it's really easy to get in this like pitcher only mentality of like, yeah, I pitched, 3 days ago, and like, I worked out and I ran, and I threw my bullpen, but like he said, like you feel like you're a little kid again, like playing baseball, hitting, bunting, like, putting pine tar on your bat, like all the little things just makes it cool,
Who was the toughest guy that you've hit against? Like, is there anybody that you sat there and go, like, I don't understand how anybody gets a hit off that dude?
Gratterall. I had to face him twice in the playoffs. I did foul one back though. That's probably my favorite part of the season. I fouled a ball back. I think it was like 102. 102 fouled. I don't know. There was a stat. I think they said his hardest pitches of that series were against me, and I'm like, why? Why is he trying to throw that hard against me? Like I don't even know. It's 103, and it's like, how does anybody ever get that?
And it looks like he's throwing BP. Like, I don't even think that he's trying, and the ball's coming out at 103 miles an hour with this wicked movement too. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, watching him throw is crazy. I mean, his stride length is like nothing, and the ball just his arm angle. His arm is so quick. It's crazy.
Who's the toughest guy you hit off?
For me, it's like lefty on lefty. I hit lefty, so facing like Snell. I mean, his breaking ball is just like, Kershaw, like really any lefty. Max Fried. I mean, Max Fried's fastball, like he threw me one to start an AB that was 91, and it looked like it was like 96. Then the next one was like 94, and it looked like 104. Like the ball just like, I don't know if it's because like, he's not that big of a guy, but the ball just like, and
he gets some
kind of
weird
Bueller. I mean,
movement
Bueller's the same way. Bueller, like his fastball, like looks like it's like 2 inches off the ground, and it just like rises. It's like I don't know what hitters are supposed to do with that. Like I really don't.
See, I think this part of the game is awesome, though, being able to dissect. Like, you wouldn't have these stories to tell.
Darvish is pretty nasty too, because he throws like 10 different breaking balls. They're all different speeds too. And I think he threw me all of them.
So he does the opposite of Kevin's track, which is he just seems to add pitches every year and doesn't simplify everything because he's almost like a painter with different colors. And it's just a different strategy. I think different pitchers work different ways. Kevin's figured out what works for him, and you can throw that splitter 60% of the time and no one's going to come close to it because it's a very unusual unicorn type pitch. Fisher, like when you're looking at it, number one, what makes it so unicorny? Both of these guys have outlier stuff. What in your mind makes it that way? And like, how much fun is it to do those heat maps? I mean, are you ever sitting there feeling sorry for hitters?
Well, it's so rare to see the runs that either one of those guys made. 14 starts, 13 earned runs for Kevin, 14 starts, 14 earned runs for Logan at a different time. I mean, those runs are, I think they've happened 40 times in the last century and in the bigs. And here's two teammates that did it. Did I feel sorry for hitters? Hell no. But yes, it is amazing. Kevin's splitter drops a lot. You know, you see his drip and you see his grip and you can see why that's happening. It reminds me a little, you might think this is weird, of our talk with Giolito of, you know, he's a heavy fastball change guy. Like, what the hell are you doing throwing 2 pitches? Like, his changeup isn't this robotic, it's going to break 4 inches every time this way, it's going to drop every time. So if a guy guesses right, he can kind of guess the path and go. Kevin's got a nice little scatter plot there that still triggers a ton of swings, and he doesn't have to be super fine with it except for extreme circumstances, like he said. And then it's just all, it's splitters are low, fastballs are up. There's already a huge movement difference. Where are your eyes as a hitter? So even when he throws the slider that he may not be in love with, it's way over there. It's moving the opposite direction. It's a whole nother thing. It's just that combination. The pitch is unicorny, but it's the combination of all that stuff that just adds up. And it's the same thing with Logan. I mean, you got, geez, a lot of pitchers would kill to have one pitch where they got like a negative average launch angle, like a sinker. He does it with his changeup and his sinker. He's the only guy in the bigs to have two pitches with negative launch angle averages. And then I was actually surprised till I looked, but with the slider, he gets more righty on righty outside whiffs than anybody. If you draw a line out there like a foot off the center. And so what are you doing as a hitter? So he joked about his 4-seamers, and he doesn't like his 4-seamer, but when you throw 3 or 4 up top and no one's looking, well, that gets him to look a little bit and changes it even more. So the combination really.
Yeah, it seems like that would be the perfect thing, and that's probably why the sinker is so effective, because it pairs.
I was waiting for that. Hello.
Hey.
Say hi.
TV debut.
This is Sutton.
What is up, Sutton?
It's a little bug-eyed right now.
I would be too. Oh, there we go.
There we go, girl.
Hey,
See Webby.
Hi.
Now we're just gonna sit there and make baby faces.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think like one thing that you know, to go off what Michael was saying is, I feel like guys either kind of you either pitch side to side or you pitch up and down, you know, and there's way more guys that pitch side to side, right? You know, now. And so like you either work this way or you work that way. And so, you know, and honestly, like Webby can kind of do both because of his changeup. And so that's super unique, obviously. But, you know, over the years, I've definitely, you know, especially the last 2 years, like just found out what works for me and what I need to do to keep guys, you know, off balance and tweaks, you know, to try to like continue to do that. And, you know, but it took a lot of work. Like, I don't think you just can pitch up in the zone without practicing doing it. You know, it's definitely like a learned thing. And, you know, I love watching other guys that do it. Like Snell pitches up in the zone a ton. You know, Bauer did too. Like there's a ton of guys that do that a lot. And, you know, it's all about, you know, but like you said, like there's more guys coming back with good sinkers. And so, you know, the game is always evolving, and, you know, when is the big breaking ball going to come back? You know, like when is that going to be a thing? Because, you know, for a little bit there, it was like everybody's throwing a cutter, you know, and it was the gyro slider for a little bit there. And, you know, and it's interesting to see certain teams going, like we would even talk about, you know, the Dodgers were like, man, they have a ton of sinker guys in their bullpen, you know, but you look at all their starters like Bueller and, you know, Julio, like those guys pitch up in the zone. So it's like, I think it's just super cool to see like where the game's at and where it's going to go, you know, and maybe it flip-flops in a couple of years. Maybe all the starters are going to start throwing sinkers, and then bullpen guys are going to pitch up in the zone, you know, and it's just it's just really cool to see.
I think that's what makes the game great, is the constant battle for every guy that has, you know, every pitcher that has Michael Fisher in their corner. You have somebody as a hitting coach or somebody that's doing it to try to counter all this stuff. And people then, you know, it's just going to be the endless cat and mouse game, because, you know, it makes it fun. Like it makes it interesting to be a pitcher and interesting to be a hitter. Although I'm not really that excited about hitting. The Tyler Rogers is a weird has very, very unique stuff. That was another guy where I was like, I kind of pity people when they're hitting against something they've never seen before. Do you guys ever laugh at some of those swings?
Oh my God. Every time he pitches.
Yeah, every day.
It's insane watching it. A slider that actually rises more than a fastball. And to see hitters sitting there going, they're waiting for it to drop and it ends up at their neck and they're swinging at these things.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, his fastball too, like it might only be 82, 83, but coming out, like playing catch, it feels like 95. And it's, you add that to his slider that's like 71 and it's going this way. It's crazy and impressive and awesome all at the same time. Like I love watching him throw, and I love the swings. Like I think everyone like made a joke about it, saying like, dude, you're gonna hit somebody in the head. Like they're gonna swing and them in the helmet, like at some point. And like honestly, I think that will happen at some point. That's how crazy impressive like his ball moves, and it's so cool to watch. Like he's like this far away from the ground every single time, and I don't know. It's awesome.
Do you catch that?
I played catch with him probably 3 times. The first time hit me square in a part that's not supposed to get hit, and it was that was fun. That was not fun.
Yeah, I played catch with him one time in spring training. I think before the 2020 season, and I told him, I was like, I will never play catch with you ever again. It's so unique, and like his fastball, it's like a bowling ball. I mean, it literally like it comes and it looks like it's going to rise because if you think about it, it should. But then it just like the spin on it just takes it straight down. And then, Ketel Marte, he almost hit him in the face, struck him out. Like, and I think that's when everybody was like, dude, like that's going to happen one day. You're going to hit somebody. You're going to hit a lefty in the face and they're going to swing at it, and it's just like, that's just so crazy. And, I played with Darren O'Day in Baltimore, when I feel like he was, at the best point in his career, and he was like kind of more sidearm guy. And he called himself like his rising fastball. He called it like the Jenny Finch, and like his ball would literally rise and guys would like, it would look like he's throwing 110, the swings that these guys are taking. And it's just cool because, Rod's is the same way, but his is like sinking, and like, I mean, he like, we would always joke, like he should have won the Gold Glove because he had so many like weak ground balls back to him. And he's just such a funny guy. He always looks like he's lost, like they bring him in. He just looks like he's like, someone just handed him a glove and was like, hey, get these next 3 outs. And he's just like, he'd punch out 2 guys to end the inning and he's just walking off like, and Webby knows what I'm talking about. Like the look on his face is just like, he's just the best. And he's a great teammate, great dude. And he's from Colorado. So that's the best part about him.
Well, I'm going to let you guys go. Do you have any questions for them, Mr. Fisher?
No, I just quickly, it was great. I met them individually. I didn't even know they were buds. I knew they were teammates, and it was so great to get to know that they were friends. And just to hear the confident attacking that they both have done, and how the culture in San Francisco like breeds it. The players are breeding it. Bailey cold called me. One of you guys gave him his my number, I guess. But I get this anonymous call and I answer it. This is Andrew Bailey. And he's like vetting me because he wants to know what's up. You're these guys are using your stuff. And he's like, hey, this is going to get us more outs. So I'm not going to stand in the way. That's not a common thing across the league. So
I wish
it all bred, right. It all bred what you saw. I mean, just an insanely winning culture.
Yeah, I think that's awesome because I really do wish more coaches were that. Like, you guys are trying to be the best you can be, getting all the weapons you can have, and being a little bit more open-minded than controlling over that stuff would be
yeah,
useful.
still vet it, but then
yeah, absolutely. They should know what you're saying. Yeah,
sure.
Totally. Well, cool guys. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This was fun.